Thank you so much for being here. Before we introduce ourselves and start talking about us, we're going to introduce you to Kelly Bowers from Three Valleys Community Foundation, who sponsored tonight's event.
So good evening. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'm Dr. Kelly Bowers. I'm the CEO President for Three Valleys Community Foundation, and I have the honor of representing our board and our advisors, as well as our professional advisors. One advisor who is here, and one of our professional advisors who's in the back. And more importantly, I get to represent the Community Foundation. And our entire purpose is to serve nonprofits and to serve our community. And we do that one connection, one donation, and one grant at a time. So if people ask about us, it's Three Valleys. What's one of the valleys? No. That's close. Good guess. Livermore? Amador? San Ramon Valley. Okay, Three Valleys. Castro Valley has asked to become the fourth, but and so basically, if you just want to remember us in a nutshell, our theme is give, grant, and grow, and give where you live. And we know that when people give from their heart and from their pocketbooks, it can make a difference. They don't know always where to go, so my job is to match make those donations and match make them with the best causes. And I don't think it gets better than the causes here tonight. So thank you for coming.
You might be wondering why I'm one-handed today and trying to navigate this, but we thought it would be super fun to introduce ourselves and our organizations, and then tell you about our favorite mugs, just so you could get to know us a little bit. And I'll go last, so if you guys... When I take it, you want me to go first? Okay, I'm going to go first. Also, I want to invite you, if you have a question in the moment, please raise your hand, because it might get lost in the couple hours that we have together. And I want to make sure that it's just going to be really organic, very personal kind of night. So please feel free to just interrupt us, raise your hand, and we'll have a conversation about your question for you. But tonight I brought my family mug. So it has all my family members. It was given to me by my bonus daughter for Christmas, and it has all my loved ones on it. And any opportunity I have to share photos of my grandkids, I will do so. So that's why it's here today.
Hello, my name is Christine. I'm the Executive Director of Tri-Valley Haven. Nice to be here. I'm just getting back from vacation. I have 356 emails, and the mug one was not one that I read. But I do have a mug at home with my son when he was 3, and it's very, very cute, I promise you. Thank you for having me.
Hello, I'm Melanie Sadek from Valley Humane Society. I am the Executive Director. And I brought my mug. I work hard so my dog can have a better life. Which I have 3 dogs, so I guess I have to decide which one I'm working for, but and a cat and 3 children and a gecko and a husband.
Which one's your favorite?
No questions, please. I'm just kidding. All right, I need to test it out. My name is Daniel Curtis. I'm the chapter president of Sleep and Heavenly Peace for Alameda County. And my mug is my SHP one, so I take this everywhere I go. The reason I like it because it has the cork button. So that way, wherever you put it, it never slides. It just stays right there. That's why I do that.
Can I take it? Okay. Good evening. My name is Christine Beitsch-Bahmani, and I'm the CEO of CityServe of the Tri-Valley. And I have 2 mugs that I use. One's purple, my favorite color, but I didn't bring that one. I have my white one. It says God is good. And I've been using this one because I have to remember that all the time, because in the work that we do, it's hard. And so right when I wake up and I have my coffee, I want to remember God is good. No matter what I go through, I'm going to get through that day just fine.
My name is John Bost. I'm the executive director of Open Heart Kitchen. When we came in, we were talking to Kim, and she said there have been studies done that people who talk to people who have coffee mugs feel an instant sort of connection to them. So if you feel drawn and connected to us tonight, it probably has nothing to do with our personalities and this. So if you came with your Stanley or your big dumb cup tonight and people are repulsed by you, it's probably your cup, maybe not your personality. Mine says, enjoy the journey. My 18-year-old daughter's name is Journey. She gave this to me when she was 16, and I was actively scouring the dark web on how to kill her. So she said, Dad, enjoy the journey. So there you go. I know. It's like, hey, love you, honey.
That is tough. That is tough. My name is Roland Ellingsen. I'm the mission director for Tri-Valley Seek and Save. Blessed to be partners with all these great agencies here and others. My cup is, my wife and I, being full-time missionaries, we have this job on Sundays, which is really cool. We go visit lots of churches. And one of the things at churches, when you arrive, they have the thing called the free cup. So we have many free cups. This one here says Calvary Monterey. It is the winner. It's the one I use all the time because it stays hot all day long.
Oh, that's good. Okay, I feel super busted out by John. Ignore my manipulation tactics, but I wanted everyone to feel like you're in a warm community. On a hot day, please. Maybe we should go around and explain what beverage we have in. No, I'm just kidding. Oh my God. Well, this, as you can tell, our ultimate goal today is that you feel like you can ask the deep questions, that maybe you don't have a space where you can ask those questions, but also to see us, we are leaders in the community and we do have big, important roles in the community, but we are also very, very human. And I would also go as far to say, because our jobs are so incredibly tough and layered with just onions of difficulties, we have all, I think, developed ourselves a really great dark sense of humor to cope. So that might come out a little bit today as well. And please, with grace and mercy with that for us. I think if we could go around maybe reintroducing, I forgot to introduce myself because I'm terrible at that and I do that often. I am Kim Curtis. That's my last name, Kim Curtis. Stumbled over it. Right. I am the executive director of Goodness Village. And so if we could go around and maybe tell a little bit about our organizations, what we do, and maybe like drop in how we're interconnected, I think, to anyone. And I don't think we have to go in rows. We can back and forth. Yeah, no, too formal.
All right. I like that. I got to point out. So our focus is connecting hearts to hope, our hands to serve, and then lives to Christ. So we are a Christ-led organization, but at the core of that is Christ does call us to meet really needs of the community. And so our blessing is that we have many partners. The Lord does send in lots of resources. We have programs, from a therapy program. We have a car program. We have just a pay bills program. We have a food program. But it's all interrelated with a number of these agencies right here. And just real quickly, just as a small example, I was talking to John here. Today, one of our housing missionaries is here. And 2 days ago, she took this woman, that's 65 years old, went down to John's place, and she was selected to be in the nightly thing as far as a bed to be in for the night. What's so cool about it, we had her in a hotel. It's not a typical thing we do because we have other programs for this. But she was in a hotel, and so she started being there, and during the day would go to the hotel. She assimilated into this awesome program. And so I really want to thank John. But that's one example. Beds is another one. Dan Curtis stepped in as one of our first partners. And so he said, Roland, what do we got to do? We got beds. And so anyway, he brought in the first 20 beds to kids. We work with moms, basically say if we could save the mom, we could save the kids. So 70% of those we work with are single moms. And so what we do is we say, when you have somebody on the street, we are all in to find our resources, put them in a place right away, but then bring in all these other great people and partners. So one of them, Daniel, is you. I just got to thank you for that and the ongoing stuff. CityServe goes, no need there, but I'll just quickly just say one little, just last week, and this happens all the time, but we've had a family of 10 that Margaret Ann has been working with and with us, and basically this, and there's other people that have been helping, but Margaret Ann brought in 3 other partners, and so this family of 10 went into a Livermore place this week, and we've been walking with them for about 2 months, just helping hotels and all kinds of stuff, but that's like so awesome. I know nothing about animals. We got nothing.
You're going to find out.
But I have to say Tri-Valley Haven is such an awesome partner as well. And there's so many women and families and men as well that have come out of that and then come into our program or come from us to them as a gift. But you guys are so awesome with your people and just trying to stabilize them moving forward. Goodness Village has had several through Margaret Ann and other partnerships of ours come in. So overall, just to wrap it up, is organizationally, we're focused on saving people through the power of Jesus, but with the help that he gives us with his great partners that are right here in the valley.
Amen. Yes.
Sorry about the dogs.
Yeah, so ditto on the story from Roland. So hi again. Seeing a familiar face of the woman that was dropped off, and we were able to get her raffled into the core group. So she's got a reserved bed every night. So Open Heart Kitchen's been around. It'll be 30 years next year. We've done about 8 million meals in that time. And we, with the launch of the Vineyard Resource Center this past January, really have moved beyond just the kitchen. So now we feel like we're kind of in the living room and the dining room and the bedroom and the backyard and the front porch, the street, dog run. So managing and coordinating Vineyard and launching that has been, a dream come true that goes all the way back to 2017, really. So hanging in there through COVID and watching that, the between the dreaming and the coming true was a lot of fun. So we've been in that space for a while. But through Vineyard, we've had just amazing partnerships. Working with Melanie, she and I were able to write the pet policy for Vineyard and for the Open Heart Refuge, and we're continuing to sort of try to find an underwriter because homeless shelters and pets, although they should go together, often do not go together in the eyes of people who want to make a lot of money. So even though we had created a policy that was working beautifully, our insurance decided that it wasn't. And so with the exception of service dogs, we're not allowed to have anyone in the refuge overnight. But we're trying to figure that out. So working with Melanie has been great. Working with Christine and Margaret Ann through CityServe, they really are our go-to housing navigators, care coordinators, case managers. I feel like Vineyard is a third sort of location for CityServe in the Tri-Valley because they're there that much, which is awesome. So I've enjoyed getting to know their care coordinators. And then working with Christine, intimate partner violence, sexual assault, domestic violence is so prevalent for the individuals coming through and trying to shine a light on that and bring it out into the open so that folks feel that they can talk about it with all the sort of resilience and tenacity and courage it takes to do so. And just being able to connect individuals to Tri-Valley Haven has been absolutely really huge for us. And so a lot of us, we were on speed dial, so to actually be able to call and say, hey, I've got someone on the phone, can we talk? Like in the moment instead of here's a website or here's a phone number that someone may or may not pick up to really, we actually have talked about this recently. Like when you see our name pop up, you better pick up the phone because, we'll text you otherwise that this is just sort of, hey, how you doing? Like if the phone rings and it's my name or Kim's name or Christine or Melanie, like, pick it up. Something's brewing. And then Kim, very early on, we had someone who was able to come to Vineyard and get stabilized and then actually get moved in to Goodness Village pretty early on. I think that might have been one of the first people that moved into permanent housing at Vineyard in those early, So that was awesome. And getting to know these two guys a little bit, I don't know them very well, but getting to know them a little better has been great. We're launching Open Heart Food Bank in July, which will allow us to move about 3 million pounds of food through the Tri-Valley every year, if not more. So working with Tri-Valley Haven with the pantry to be a pipeline for them so that they can move more food through, and then just figuring out how to make sure we're eradicating food insecurity altogether by 2030. That's a dream of mine. So we can do it. Right, Christine? 2030. By the end of this decade, no one should be wondering where their next meal's coming from.
We're moving around.
Okay.
Who here has
only
not
men
heard?
first? Is that what we're doing now? Men first, then women? I don't
Christine
know.
told me to go.
I did see her prompt you.
wouldn't
I'm just
break that
harassing.
line.
Go ahead.
At least she knew my last name. 19 years, people. No, just kidding. Is there anyone here who has not heard of Sleep in Heavenly Peace? Stop it in the back. Well, not you back. So we are a nationwide program. It's called Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And what we do is we provide twin-size beds for kids from the ages of 2 to 17. There's 300 chapters nationwide, anywhere going from Mexico up to Canada, and I run Alameda County. The nearest one to us is Tracy, so it's East San Joaquin County. Down south would be Hollister. Up north would be El Dorado Hills. So you can see there's nothing in Contra Costa County. There's nothing in Santa Clara County. So what we do is I've been the chapter president for 2.5 years now. So right at the end of COVID. We've been here since 2018. It was opened up here on CrossWinds Church property. They were generous enough to let us have a space. Most of the chapters are mobile, so they take all their equipment to the site to make their beds, but we're blessed to be able to do it here. So what we do is we take raw material, we cut it, we sand it, we drill it, we put together, we make a twin-size bed. We give them a brand new mattress, brand new bedding. If we're lucky, we can try to collaborate with the parents to see what they're interested in, so that way we could team it up with the child. Last year, we delivered 156 beds to Alameda County, and this year we're trying to shoot for 300. It takes time to make the beds, but we want the people to invest in making those beds. You know, we all have those quick, easy solutions of why don't you just buy an IKEA bed? Have you put an IKEA bed together? It takes 10 times as long to make. By the time you get halfway
Swedish
through the
meatballs,
bed,
though.
you got to reverse it and put it back together again. It's a horrible, horrible system. But anyway, so our...
We have IKEA
Isn't there
beds
someone from IKEA
inside.
It took me
The Goodness
9
Village
hours to
houses.
build that bed.
Rein it in.
I can make a twin-size SHP bed in like 5 minutes. But anyway,
Made with love.
it is made with love, and we want that. We want that investment that is made with love. People will feel a connection when they're out there sanding and cutting, you know. And then we team them up and we deliver these beds to these kids, and they apply for the beds either through school counselors, nurses, through neighbors, things like that. So we kind of figure that conservatively, there's 1.7 million people in Alameda County, and 9% is the poverty level, meaning that they are living month by month. And that half of that poverty level being a family of 4, a mom, a dad, and 2 kids, that we figure there's probably at least 20 to 25,000 kids that don't have a bed they can call their own. And so we only deliver 150 to 200 beds a year. So you can see how our impact is, but we're taught by our founder that it's one bed at a time. And I am driven, one, by being married to a social worker of 19 years, that was her full-time job. My full-time job is something else, and that my part-time job is to take care of children. She takes care of the adults, and then I take care of the kids, you know, because we believe that kids have no say in the predicament that they're in. Doesn't matter if there's a BMW in the driveway, if there's a 90-inch TV on the wall, or whatever it may be. If the kid does not have a bed, and we have an opportunity to impact them to where, 1, they can bring their friends over, 2, a place that if they need solitude and be able to be somewhere, they have something they can call their own. And so when we deliver a bed, whether we're in a bad mood, long drive, commute, how far we've gone, to see a 3, 4, 5, 16-year-old kid get a bed they call their own, whether they're humbled and they're just hiding their emotions and it's all over their face, or it's a 3-year-old jumping up and down because now they had something of their own, it's a worthy cause for us. And not only, and this is my last thing I'm going to say about it, is that not only we're just delivering beds to kids that are in need because they haven't had a bed, but one of my main purposes is if I can keep a child out of the system, meaning that there's an opportunity to get them a bed, so that way an investigator or someone comes out to take a look, they have the bed. Because that's the hardest thing to get. They'll come out and say, hey, we need a bed, we need a dresser, we need their own space. I have beds in my system ready to go for emergency services, that if I get a call, I'll deliver the bed. And they're not all because of exactly that. It could be they lost their home to a fire. It could be they're running away from a domestic partner. It could be that they just couldn't pay their month's rent and everything was left behind. I did a family in Dublin, well-known family. They're taken care of. They had a living. They were living their best life out there. Both the parents died in a car accident. And then the 20-year-old daughter now became the guardian of a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old kid. And so I was able to go out, provide a bed. They didn't really care about the bed. They're going through the moment that they have. But these are also some of the situations where if I can help just a little bit, then I will continue to do that. And that's what I do.
And could you explain what organizations you partner with briefly?
I don't know any of their names. Please do not put me on your speed dial.
Wow.
All right, so CityServe is my biggest person that calls me all the time. I just heard about the family of 10, and I am right there for them. So, they're moving in. They need 8 beds or 10 beds. I have 10 beds ready to go. Well, it'd be like the Navy. That is a Navy portion that we can have 3 beds high. No, it doesn't go that well. It's 10 feet. It's over the ceiling height. But so CityServe is a big one. I definitely love Roland from Seek and Save. We were the first ones where I had 30 beds in the warehouse, but I had nobody to deliver them. And he brought his team out. We had 3 or 4 guys, and every family he called me, goes, we got a family? We went out, we built a bed. So in the beginning, he helped kind of give me that initiative and that drive to want to do this. Because when you're one person, which was me, seeing that there's 30 beds in the storage and no one to deliver them, you don't know what you do. And now I have a core team of about 25 people. And then we do a bed build every single month. And we have about 75 to 100 people come out every single month to help us build these beds. So our reach is out there pretty far. I don't know anything about animals.
You're good. Okay, pass the mic.
Let's go way over there.
Thank you. I'm Christine. I'm from Tri-Valley Haven. And Tri-Valley Haven, here's give a shout out to my wonderful team over here. So we create homes safe from abuse. So Tri-Valley Haven, we serve survivors of domestic violence. We serve victims of sexual assault, and we serve people who are in poverty and who are homeless. And our services include a 24-hour crisis hotline. So somebody can call us at 2 in the afternoon or 2 in the morning if they need assistance. We have an emergency shelter. We actually have the only emergency shelter that takes 2-parent families and that also takes teenage boys. And you might say, of course you take teenage boys, but believe it or not, many shelters in the Bay Area do not take teenage boys. So a woman fleeing domestic violence who has a 12-year-old might have to make the decision either to leave and leave her 12-year-old with the perpetrator or not leave at all. And obviously that's an untenable decision for anybody to make. So we've never, had them make that. We have a transitional home where people can stay for up to 2 years. And with domestic violence, there's a lot of stigma, there's a lot of healing that's required. So, sometimes 3 months is not long enough. So it's really important that we have transitional housing. It's really important that we have places like Goodness Village and partners where, none of us can do this alone. There is so much need. And I think I came from Boston and moved here 20 years ago. And I remember people, saying there's no homelessness and there's no domestic violence. And obviously we all know that that's not true. Unfortunately, there is a lot of domestic violence in the Tri-Valley. There's a lot of homelessness in the Tri-Valley. It might look a little different. It might be hidden. but it's here. We really try to meet people where they're at. So for example, our food pantry is a client choice food pantry. And what that looks like is people come and they get to choose the food that they want to eat. Before we had a client choice food pantry, our food pantry was on Junction Avenue, and we would notice that we would find our food all along Junction Avenue, and we're like, like that's interesting. But it made sense, right? If you were getting a bag of food and you couldn't eat half of it, you weren't going to carry it on BART and on the bus and bring it home. So why give it to somebody if they can't eat it? And it's so much more dignified for somebody to come and them to be greeted and then to get to shop like we get to shop when we go to the farmer's market. We have a thrift store where all of our residents get to go and shop for free. And that's really nice as well. Because before we had the thrift store, we would bring a big garbage bag full of clothing to the shelter, and people would kind of go through it and say there's nothing my size or there's nothing for my child. So again, they get to go to the thrift store and they get to find what they need. We also offer counseling and group therapy, and all of our services are free of charge, so nobody is ever turned away for the inability to pay. And we do have amazing therapists. They're all trained, and crisis counselors. They're all trained in domestic violence and sexual assault, so they understand the trauma that person is experiencing, and they understand that they will need time, and they will need, and what is right for one survivor isn't necessarily right for another survivor. We also have a rape crisis center, and our rape crisis center, anytime somebody is sexually assaulted in the Tri-Valley, they by law have a right to have an advocate with them for the interview process, for the forensic exam. They don't have to report to get services from Tri-Valley Haven, but if they do report, we're there every step of the way. If they don't report, we're there every step of the way. We also provide services at Santa Rita Jail, and many people at that jail are survivors who never did get help. And as a result, it led to self-medication and other things. So we could not do what we do without all of the people here on this stage. So I already talked about how we refer to Goodness Village. Melanie has helped out. We are building a new domestic violence shelter. Our old shelter was falling apart and was much too small. We were often full. Our new shelter will have 50% more beds. And Melanie is assisting so that we will be able to take dogs and cats, at least at part of our shelter. So we're super excited about that. Yes. Thank you for that. CityServe, they're a great partner. They're out on the streets. They refer to us. We refer to them. They just do an amazing job really walking side by side with people who are unhoused, and we really rely on that service. Vineyard has just been great. I think that not only we really needed a place for single men and single women to be. We needed another emergency shelter. But not only that, I feel like Vineyard has given us, I think when we collaborate, we get new ideas and we get new ways of doing things. And Vineyard's really been that for me. It's like, hey, there is a different way that we can do things, and we really can all work together, and we really can have those wraparound services, truly wraparound services, when we all work together. So I really learned that from you and from Vineyard. I'm excited to just see where it keeps going. And Seek and Save, you've been really amazing. Sometimes families come in the shelter and we have to have rules, right? We have to keep it safe. Sometimes we have to ask people to leave. It's the thing that I and the staff hate the most. But if somebody, for example, maybe cannot stop doing drugs, and there's a lot of people there that are in recovery, and we've given them a chance, and they still are doing drugs, we do have to ask them to leave. and we may be able to put them in a motel for a night or two, but Seek and Save can sometimes step in where and they don't have that, community shelter environment. So they're really great to reach out in an emergency. And we are going to build a new shelter, so I'm definitely going to call you for beds. That I could definitely use that. But yeah, really glad to be here. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Talk about the animals.
All right, because apparently
About the animals.
everyone on the stage doesn't have anything to do with animals.
Yet.
Yes. So my name's Melanie Sadek. I am the president, executive director of Valley Humane Society. So we have a shelter in Pleasanton on Nevada Street, and it's right off of Stanley. So we kind of are, even though we're located in Pleasanton, we do a lot of work in Livermore. We serve the whole Tri-Valley, so all the way up to Danville as well. And our organization's been around, I think 37 years now. And so, yes, we're animals, right? But my background is actually helping people. So I manage the traffic safety department for AAA, very giant advocate in helping children. And so what Daniel said touches my heart because children, animals don't have a say in their environment either. And so we are often seeing right now tons of animals entering our shelter, not because they are bad dogs or cats, because they have problems, but just because of their situation, because of their human situation. And so, for me, my mission really, I want to keep animals from being homeless because most of the time there's no reason for them to be homeless. And so the two reasons we're seeing animals enter the shelter right now is a lack of access to vet care and housing. And so what Valley Humane does a lot of things. So I'll just briefly tell you, we have an animal shelter. We bring in dogs and cats that need our support. We provide veterinary care and try to find them new homes. We are a closed intake facility, so we're not government contracted. We get no money from the government, none. So if you feel sorry for us and want to donate, go ahead. And then we have a surgery center. So we have an entire vet team that does surgeries. Our team with one veterinarian can do up to 45 surgeries in one day. And so we specialize in high quality, high volume spay and neuter. And so when it comes to the vet services, I will tell you that at the core of who I am, I think just like human medicine, that it shouldn't be veterinary care should not be available just to people with a lot of money. So money and love are not the same thing. And we have this really big issue right now where we're seeing a lot of private equity firms come in and they're buying our vet clinics. And I don't want you to think that I think poorly of veterinarians or I think it's bad to make money. But I think there needs to be an accessible option so that people that need care can get the care that they need. In addition, we have a pet food pantry called Animeals. And we distribute over 250,000 pet meals a year. And we do it in collaboration with a lot of the groups up here. During COVID, we distributed over 500,000 meals. And so why is that important? When we are not addressing animals in our health and human service equation, what we're doing for people is then diminishing our services. And so when you are not feeding the animal in their home, your human food is now going to the animal. And so there's no reason for that. But the government does not give any money for pet food. So the, what's it called? Like CalFresh, your food stamp type programs, nothing you cannot use those materials to buy pet food. And so it really does fall on your private and public animal shelters to provide food so that people can feed their pets. Otherwise, they are using John's food. Or Christine's food. Anybody giving out food is feeding pets. So we don't think that should happen. We also have a pet therapy program that does a lot of mental health support. And so we have 110 pet therapy handlers that go out throughout the community. We have handlers that sit with children on the witness stand in Alameda County courtrooms to help them get through very difficult situations. They go into Lucille Packard Children's Hospital. We are in memory care facilities, senior centers. We are the exclusive partner for Veterans Affairs. And we're also in all of the school districts in the Tri-Valley working on stress relief for high school and middle school students. And at the elementary school level, we are working to help build literacy skills. And so for young children that are struggling to learn how to read, sometimes we're a little hard on them as parents and even educators because they have to reach certain milestones. But our dogs, when they read to the child, it breaks down this barrier and it becomes associated with a positive. And so then they can gain more literacy skills. So I probably am forgetting something, but I'm going to go back to kind of our access to vet care. And so I'm really honored to be on this stage. I know that it's like, why are you letting the animal person be up here? Though I am a people person too. John and I have been working really closely trying to figure out, like, how do we make sure that animals are in the equation? And so when you think of somebody who's unhoused or somebody who's fleeing a domestic violence situation, sometimes their animals are their home. Like, that is their entire family right there. And yet in almost every stage of our health and human service outreach, we completely stop helping them because they have an animal. So we have women in our own community that are choosing to live in their vehicle because they cannot get into housing that would allow them to take their dogs. So at the state level, we did pass a bill a year ago that any government funding housing projects, they couldn't deny the animal, but those are just new developments. And so currently right now, a lot of the housing that's available will not accept the dog. And so again, if we really want to help people, we have to think about their whole family. And that means that you have to think about their animals as well.
I'll go just to break it up, and then you can go. So again, Goodness Village, you are maybe 20 steps away from Goodness Village right now. We're right across the street. We're behind this building, and we have 28 tiny homes for our formerly unsheltered individuals who meet criteria for chronically unsheltered. So that means they have an extended period of time of at least 1 year of being unsheltered, and then they have a diagnosis of either mental health or chronic physical illness that they're managing as well. And we are not a sober living environment, so that way we don't have to remove anyone that might have a relapse if they've had a tough day, and that they work on their recovery at their own pace rather than our pace. People they don't move in straight lines from A to B. They kind of go back and forth, right? And so we wanted to provide that love and care and support while folks are managing through their life as they live here with us. I get to the pleasure of saying how I know all the people up here. We've only been open for 3 years. We just celebrated our 3rd anniversary. I'm really, really proud of the work that my team, as you've seen them moving around here as well. And when we first opened, my fear was that I was joining a vicious game of Hunger Games with other really, really incredible organizations, and I did not want to play that. I wanted to.
He just got that.
You just got it?
No, I just saw her with a bow and arrow shooting you.
Everyone shoots.
Yeah, everyone shoots at you. That's fair. And so I wanted to get to know the folks in the neighborhood, and I also knew that if we were bringing people in who have been connected to them and then they were getting dropped off here, that we were really setting up 28 people to fail because they had no connection to us. And why would they trust us? Why would they believe anything that we said? Why would they want to even be here? And we were giving them a lot of stressors to go with that. We gave them neighbors and bills and case managers and just a lot of reasons that they should blow right out of the housing opportunity that we were giving them. And so it was important to me to get to know the people that were providing those services. And it's been really an adventure of coolness with you all. And I love it. And so Roland and I think you were the first Zoom call I ever had with an organization. And that just kind of started me thinking about what our mission was and how we were going to kind of network and get to know individuals. And now we have a couple of your participants that reside with us. I got to meet John. I don't even know how I got to meet you, but it's been rad. I think just through, I guess that's an old throwback. I'm old.
That's cool again.
It's cool again. I'm bringing it back. I'm working really hard. John's work with Vineyard 2.0 is vastly different than other shelters that I have had to work with over the years, and just the human experience that he brings to it, and also just you're not jaded, you're not burnt, you're just passionate, and I appreciate what you bring into the space that you're providing to individuals. And so we now have folks from you, and we also have food from Open Heart Kitchen that comes to the village. And food is not a drought in the village, and we do take care of basic needs first. So food, clothing, shelter first before we expect, and sleep. Those are all crucial before we go into any other therapeutic recovery conversations. We need to take care of those basic needs. And so thank you for that. Christine and Margaret Ann were our first vetters of anyone moving in. We didn't know them. So having those referrals come through the door, and that they knew what the strengths and maybe some of the struggles that folks were dealing with, gave us the ability to put support plans in place to be able to provide the best care as people were moving through the door. Daniel, I'm married to, so he's just by default has to be on the stage. But also he our folks that live at the village help clean up after the shop, after they work in there, and there's dust everywhere and everything. So as a vocational opportunity, they are part of that team that they can go over there and clean up and do that. We've also borrowed his tools on numerous occasions. So appreciate you. Melanie has been working on bringing vet services to the village, which is crucial for our folks. We now have 5 dogs, 2 cats, and so many fishes. Do you take care of fishes? Oh, well, we'll work on that. We have a lot of fishes going on in the village.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, but our, people will love on their animals so much, and they will decline housing so that they can be with their pets. Those pets have kept them. I've had clients over my years that the pets have woke them to remind them to take their medication. They have nudged them when they were heading into a diabetic coma to remind them that they needed to take some sugar. Like, they are not leaving these animals behind. And I think it's unfair that we would ever ask them to. And so I appreciate that you will bring the vet care to our people here. And then we have a couple people from Tri-Valley Haven. And fun fact, Christine and I started our careers at the same organization years ago. I can say that. You can say minutes ago for her. But our background and training. So one of the cool things that we were talking about is just evolutionary, I think, of how systems of care have changed. And 20 years ago, organizations would never have been sitting on this stage. I don't think. They were very siloed. Your mental health in one, your substance use in another, your housing in another. And so I just want to appreciate that we are all on this stage, and because we understand the whole person has multiple things that they're trying to navigate in this world, as we all are, and finally they can kind of get it, not all in one place, but they know that we're all going to make sure that their needs are taken care of.
Okay. All right. So this is the point in the evening that we're going to take a test, and we're going to see how much you have retained from everything that's going on. So our special sauce is we have teams of people that know everything that's happening in all these organizations and the other 100 or so that are in the Tri-Valley. And our team provides that wraparound care coordination. So when somebody comes in, they drop in. We have 2 offices, plus we go out, street outreach. We have pop-ups all over town. We want to know what everyone's doing, what they specialize in, what lane they're in, because how exhausting we could not do everything that everyone's doing here. And so, but we want to know who are those people when right now, if you guys probably can't remember everything that we talked about. Now picture if you were in crisis and you were just beat up, or you're just raped, or you just lost your job and now you're on the street. And then you have to figure out this human services maze. It would be impossible, and you'd probably give up, and just who knows where you'd end up. So we're there. We try to train our team. One, let's listen to the story. Let's show that we care, and it takes time when people are in crisis. So we don't work with just people in crisis, but for the purposes of this evening, mainly unsheltered. We do street outreach and all throughout the Tri-Valley. So we have teams going around. We know almost where all the encampments are. We have that mapping. We work with all PD of 3 cities. We do ride-alongs regularly. We attend a lot of meetings because with people that are providing services. We try to find access points out in the community because not everybody can make it into an office or want to make it into an office. We try to bring together other nonprofit service providers together quarterly for our collab lab so we can just talk about what are the gaps in services. Transportation's huge. So this next one, July, I think 23rd or 22nd, we're hosting at our Pleasanton office is going to be around transportation because that's a big issue when someone's in crisis or they're not in crisis or they're older adult, they don't drive anymore, but they need to access some of these important services. So we're going to bring that dialogue and talk about that. What else do we do? We have a lot of preventative services through our older adults. We're noticing the trending of older adults becoming homeless. So we have a lot of preventative. We work with APS. We do in-home modifications, assessments in homes to make sure people are safe and thriving. Should they be there? Or is there a better place for them to live? But without housing, which is the number one issue, without that inventory, it makes our job, we don't build a bed, we don't hand out a meal, we don't have a shelter. So our jobs are really nuanced. So it's difficult for our team to keep that encouragement that someday maybe we can help someone find a house. Or so when they actually get placed into some of these, and just having Vineyard and Goodness, to have just a place where they can kind of stay for a minute so we can actually work on those deeper level things has been wonderful. So, okay, so then Roland, we work a lot with Roland, doing a lot of collaborating around, say, someone that needs their car repaired or a hotel or just those, let's bring 3 or 4 people together. Although probably any one of our organizations could pay for the whole thing. We wanted to collaborate because we want to make sure that person has a lot of touch points and that they're really feeling there's a community around them. So we just love Roland. John, and just the food between our seniors and the Vineyard has just been extraordinary to have a place where we were doing a lot of hotels and we were going through, I think, $80,000 every 3 months of hotels, and that's just not sustainable. So when we were able to really get people in there in place so our care coordinators can go over and help them get connected to benefits and resources has been great. Beds, you do a lot of beds for our people once they get housed. Animals are huge. When you're working with folks and they're living in their car and they have their little doggy that's so sweet and their best friend, trust me, they're not going to go in a shelter unless they can bring that dog. So just whatever we can do to support the animals and the people that love them would be great. And I mean, Tri-Valley Haven, we're constantly going back and forth. And what's cool is our 3 agencies, we're going to bring all of our staffs together for a day for vicarious trauma, do a training with our team because we're all seeing trauma all day long. And so we as leaders just felt, what can we do to support our teams going through and seeing this every day, because we want healthy teams. So we're going to join in September together and fund it together to be able to have that training. Goodness Village, love it. And a lot of the folks living there are formerly our participants, and we're just seeing them thrive. And that's at the end of the day, to see them just working and walking around and doing bubbles and just living their best lives and going deeper than what we can go with them, and healing has just been phenomenal. So love it.
So if you go to Goodness Village's social media, you can see some amazing pictures of some bubbles that I was creating. They're giant bubbles that I was learning how to do from the neighbor. And it looks like it's going to be amazing. Every single one of those bubbles popped before it made something. But our social media, Jackie back there, really made it look like I did something cool. So she's great at that. I'm going to set this down. So I'm thinking, it took us a little bit of time to get around there, but great orgs, right? I want to, maybe we can do like what I like to do, compliment sandwiches. And I think we just kind of really evidenced what's cool about our organizations. Maybe we could do a quick conversation about maybe what our biggest challenges are. And then we'll come back in with like coolest win or great story, something like fills your bucket. But we'll go first with like the meh, and then we'll fill everybody up before they leave. Is that good with everybody? Okay. So struggles. Who wants to go first?
Are you talking about internally or externally? Like
I want you
as
to
a
really dig
leader or as an
deep.
organization?
Wow, your
'Cause our
deepest
struggles
struggle
are going to be
No.
different than the organization.
Talk about staff.
They're here. No, it's fine. Husband, well, my husband. No, it's fine.
Biggest challenge. Okay, here we go. The
Okay.
greatest challenge when trying to meet your mission.
I think the biggest challenge for me, and it has been for years, is everybody's agenda of what they want you to be doing and what you should be doing. And I have to constantly, and Margaret Ann will tell you, I'm always like, just stay focused on the mission. Stay focused on the mission. Because every day there's opportunities or people trying to that fund you that should be doing this or doing that, and it's very challenging to go, okay, am I willing to lose that funding to stay true to what I feel that mission is? And I have to be willing to just let that go. And could that mean laying someone off or cutting, So I think that's just challenging because sometimes it could be somebody that comes in your life that you're supposed to kind of adjust to that too. So I think just not being a people pleaser and staying, so you rub people wrong sometimes because you're like, sorry, I'm not going to do that because I don't feel like it's going to be done well. So we're not going to collaborate with that right now. We're going to stay here because we have an initiative that we're going to do and we want to stay focused on the mission. So I would say that's my biggest challenge. And HR stuff, but we won't get into that today.
I'm now wondering if people pleasing might be just across the board just because we're in this field, right? And so to learn maybe how to navigate that in order to stay on mission, because that's really how you do success. But it also, as human beings and just choosing this human service field, that we kind of innately want to please everyone.
When you're in leadership, you're sometimes cutting the path. So people are they're going to be early adopters. There's going to be late adopters. Some people are like, I don't know what she's doing. Like, why are they doing that? Why are they merging with this group? Why are, all this chatter. And you got to clear out that noise and go, and maybe you're wrong. But I'm a kind of person, I'd rather fail thinking I'm doing the right thing than to not try something. So I just do that, and people, sometimes they love me and sometimes they don't, and I don't care. I care about people, and I care about lives, and I care about making a difference on this planet, and sometimes you just got to stay focused on the mission, and it'll rub some people wrong. That's okay with me. Daniel?
If you're holding the mic, you gotta talk.
I'm not talking yet. I'll give it to you.
I love it when people want to say, let me show you how to do a better way of making that bed. I do get that a lot. And I'm like, in the beginning, I was like, please show me. And then I'm like, you're not making the bed that way anymore. We do have to follow a system that's corporate wide, that's protected. And we're all volunteers, right? So every chapter is volunteer run. And I have to, on my own personal time, go out and fundraise in order to pay for the bed. So the beds run about $250, $300 a piece. And if I'm going to deliver 300 beds, it's around $60,000. So I go out and bring that money in. And so I now attach myself to that dollar, saying that I work so hard, just like every nonprofit here. I work so hard to bring that money in that I want it done in a very specific way. So when people are always trying to give me advice on how to do it better, has really been challenging because I don't really hold back on what I say. And I'm trying to right now. And so I'll lose core volunteers. I'll lose people that think that they're in my mission, and now they're like, I no longer want to align with your mission. And I keep laughing. But I have learned that as a faith follower, that if your heart is tugged to serve the community in any capacity of one of these nonprofits, I consider, like I tell everybody, my relationship with God is like a rubber band. I pull it as far out as I can possibly go, and then God, let's go. And then I'm like, what am I doing way over here? And then I come back and I center myself, and I feel that same way with the people that walk alongside me with my mission, is that I stick true to what I'm supposed to do, and if they're meant to be alongside me, they will. But we have definitely felt the effects of when people have walked away, or money donors have walked away, or people that really helped complement us. And I just have to learn to go with the flow. And if I tell myself that if the doors to SHP closes, nobody lost a job. But in the deeper sense is that the children are the ones that are losing out on that. And so I've learned to be a little bit more pliable, not a lot, but enough to still draw these people in and say the mission is what is the direction, not our own personal need and desire to make it better. So that is always a everyday struggle.
I think that you're talking specific to sleep in heavenly peace, but I think that for me, I also feel that is that people come in and then they have an idea based off of what small piece of the pie that they're looking at, so they have an opinion or a suggestion on things that could be done differently, but they don't understand the whole picture or the liability that we're under and why we have the policy and the procedures in that structure that we have. And so, yes, I could do some little tweaks here, but it affects the whole thing up here that puts maybe the program at risk or even an individual at risk. So I appreciate what both of you are saying.
I really like the idea of mission, and our mission really is we're a Christ-led organization. But very early on, it became very apparent how powerful all organizations are that walk along and are looking to serve and help people. And so, but the siloed thing really has been changing here in the Tri-Valley, like we've all talked about. And the struggle is we're getting churches to do the same thing. Churches can be very siloed, very focused on their congregation, their issues. And this is probably my biggest praise too, at the same time, as they're slowly starting to evolve and move forward. And they're saying, we want to partner. We want to help people and meet their needs very specifically together as an organization of Christians. And so I'm seeing that movement where we're not seen as a challenger to the churches. We're not looking to start our own church. We're looking just to serve individual people and work with all partners and serving and meeting needs of especially moms with kids. So anyway, so my challenge is just around that area, but we're seeing movement and change as it's coming along.
I think that there's so many challenges, right? There's funding, there's strategic planning, but I think there's so many barriers to victims of domestic violence because we all know that there's not enough housing. But if you are a victim of domestic violence, you also have that stigma. And if you have been subjected to abuse, you may start believing that, that you're the problem, that oftentimes that abuse gets turned inward. So there's so many reasons that victims don't want to reach out. So it's so important when they do that we be there and that we be understanding and that we meet them where they're at, and that we, even if we have judgments, right? Because we all have biases, we all have judgments, that we stop and we say, what can I do to help this person? Because even after we can get somebody into our shelter, just housing them. In California, it is against the law for landlords to discriminate against victims of domestic violence. But a lot of landlords don't know this, and if they do, maybe don't abide by it. A lot of victims don't know their legal rights, and they may be worried, oh my gosh, maybe somebody will come looking for her or him, whoever the victim is, and that is true. So we also have to have, safety. We have to have safe housing. And we have to have, landlords that don't discriminate. And we have to have housing that's affordable. And then, because of the cycle of abuse, the average woman leaves 7 to 9 times before she leaves for good. Because, right? I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it again. I love you. I'm going to get help. It's going to be different this time. And going into a shelter is scary. You have to live with maybe, 7 other families who are also, or 10 other families that are also in crisis. So, understanding that, providing those, small touches that everybody on this panel talked about, a hot meal, an individual room, a blanket that they can take with them when they leave, a couple weeks to not have to think about, where am I going to go? That you're okay right now. You don't have to think about that right now. We got you. So I think all of those things and changing some of those, those cultural norms and those myths that we think about when we think about a victim of domestic violence. That's one of my major challenges.
We should talk about dogs now.
I'm ready. Okay, so I had to think about, there's so many challenges. I had to pick my favorite. But I would say our biggest challenge is fear. When it comes to trying to figure out how we really meet our mission, fear is one of the biggest barriers that we have to overcome. And so, at Valley Humane, we're very much a values-based organization. We have 5 very strong core values, and we believe in people. And that's super important because sometimes when you're working in animal welfare, people don't like people. I actually have a dog that says, I love dogs because people suck. I did not buy that shirt. Someone bought it for me, but I don't wear that because it's horrible, and that's not really how we feel as an organization. But we deal a lot with fear, and I think that fear tends to hold all of us back. We have animals that are entering our shelter and aren't getting adopted because people are afraid that adopting means that you're getting an animal that's abandoned, abused, neglected, and has problems. And so it's cleaner and it's easier to go and buy a dog online than to take a chance with an animal that's in a shelter and is not even there because they did anything wrong. We have our housing issues. So 70% of the housing in the rental properties in the state of California are 14 or less units. And they tend to be the most restrictive and fear-based. So they're afraid of what they're going to get into. When you get to 14 and higher, you tend to be more higher wealth living facilities. They tend to have more open policies. And so we are constantly coming up against this battle of property owners being so afraid of what animals will do to their property. So it's easier to just say, no, I'm not going to let you take it or take animals. And then if you ask someone, just go on Nextdoor. I don't care what time of day it is. I don't care what Nextdoor you're on. I guarantee you within 5 minutes, you'll find it. You're going to give up your animal? I would rather be homeless than give up my animal. Well, a big, bold statement from somebody who's probably not in the situation. And so you have a family of 5. You have 3 dogs. You thought you had an awesome living like a house. The property owner now decides they're going to move into that home. And now in less than 3 months, if you're lucky, you now have to find a place. Well, your priority is probably your children. And so if you can keep them in their school district, you can keep them in their community, but in exchange, you have to say goodbye to your animals, you're going to say goodbye. And so housing is a big issue, and a lot of it is just fear-based. Like, it's going to cost us too much money, we can't invest in it. And I could go on and on. Like, insurance is a big issue. And I love Christine, and I'm going to work with her, and we're going to get animals on the campus. We're going to do it. Same thing with John. But insurance companies are dropping animal rescue like you wouldn't believe. So right now, a private animal shelter and a rescue group only have maybe 3 insurance providers that will even cover them right now, specifically for dogs. And so now all of a sudden, we've got all these requirements where maybe you can bring an animal on site, but you can't get any insurance to cover you. And so we have got, John and I, so awesome, we're going to get it done, and then everything gets stopped because of the insurance. So when we look at the insurance crisis, it's not just impacting homes. Yes?
Cover what? What insurance cover what?
Dog bites, specifically, usually. And so what happens with insurance is that the government facilities, those shelters, they're self-insured, but all of their incidents get pooled together. And so when you have LA City that just had a $7.5 million payout for a dog attack, and 2 years ago, like a $6.5 million dog attack, that pools all of the resources, and then they say, oh, this is very risky, and we have to be risk adverse because we are operating in the red right now. So how do we avoid that? Well, we just stop covering any kind of risk, which includes animal shelters. And so what happens is now if you can't get insurance, you can't bring the animals in. And so you've got 600,000 animals through our shelters in the state of California. 300,000 of them will go through a rescue organization. If you can't get insurance, now we have 600,000 animals that are trying to be in a system that is not built for 600,000 animals. And so I will also say hate. Am I talking too much? No. So I am the chief betrayer of animals in the state of California. That is my title by one group that hates me. And that's because people that work in animal welfare are actually just horrible people that want to kill all the animals. And so we deal with this all the time. It doesn't matter what we say, the interventions we're doing, even though the shelter is just the house where they end up, it's all Health and Human Services that put them in there, and they only leave if people adopt them, they get reclaimed by their owner, or a rescue transfers them out. But because in that house they become overcrowded, they can't deal with it, it becomes inhumane, and they might euthanize the people who work there are horrible, evil people that should die. And so it's very, very challenging in animal welfare right now. Okay, I'm done. Anyone want to hug me?
I was going to say, she needs a hug. Anyone? We'll make sure you connect.
Yeah, follow that. John.
I can't follow that. That was, yeah. Yeah. The mission creep thing is real. I think that organizations in the Tri-Valley, nonprofits in the Tri-Valley, are asked to leverage their reputation and track record to do more and more and more, which puts us in that awkward position of, do we stay with our bread and butter, whatever that is, or do we say, hey, we can figure this out and we can do the impossible, and the city and the county want us to do it, so let's figure it out. I mean, that was Open Heart Refuge was born out of looking around and saying, who else is going to do this? And when Livermore Homeless Refuge went away, I know how to do this and how to create these models. So I went to our board and said, let's do this. So we had never done, we were working with unhoused populations for 30 years almost, but never operating in a homeless shelter for folks in crisis and those folks experiencing homelessness. So, and we're learning every day. I don't know of any other sector like nonprofits who are asked to do more and more with less and less at a time when I think people are tighten their pocketbooks and their wallets are at the same time when the need is going up. So it's a horrible deviation of what really needs to happen. And so I think government is asking nonprofits, the private sector, to do more and more and more. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. I think nonprofits, the private sector, has some really great entrepreneurial ideas that we can do things really well, but without the funding to do it, no matter how great our programs are, if they're working, if we don't have the money to scale those programs to meet the growing need, it's really frustrating. So I feel like all of us are asked to do more and more with less and less. Open Heart Kitchen already subsidizes the cost of feeding seniors in the Tri-Valley to the tune of 50%. So I think those statistics are not sustainable. I think most of us have models that we often lay awake at night wondering if they're sustainable, right? And what's the exit strategy? And most of us feel really passionate about the justice conversation, but we're so busy just trying to keep up with the sort of charity piece of meeting people right where they are and the needs they have. To use this analogy of getting upstream to try to figure out, this image of pulling children out of the river at the bottom of the waterfall and saying, hey, maybe we should get upstream far enough to figure out why kids keep falling into the river. I think all of us feel very passionate about that justice piece and that advocacy piece. But we're so busy downstream trying to just keep pulling people out of the river that we're looking to others to sort of do that advocacy justice work for us. And that's a long, long journey. individuals who find themselves experiencing homelessness or mental illness or substance use disorders, domestic violence, did not find themselves in that situation overnight. They certainly are not going to find their way out of it overnight either. And so being in that long journey with folks who are dealing with the most complex things on the planet, and we're asking our staff to have a trauma-informed understanding of working with folks. And we're asking our neighbors who don't want us to be there to have a trauma-informed, and the people driving by in the cars who don't want us to be there, and the police to have a trauma-informed care. Like if we could all sort of get on the trauma-informed care bus, we might stand a chance of helping individuals who are dealing with these extremely complex things in their lives. And each individual is the complexity of trauma that folks are dealing with is, and as to Christine's point, nothing feels worse than sending someone back out into the thing that you tried to, and yet there are times you have to do that, and you learn very quickly we cannot rescue and save people. We if it for us at Open Heart Refuge for the overnight shelter, it has to work for 20 people at the same time, right? Same thing at Goodness Village, same thing at Tri-Valley Haven. And so while a request is certainly reasonable from an individual, if it does not work for 20 people at the same time, it becomes really, really challenging. And so a challenge for me personally is I feel all of this, right? I mean, to not become cynical. I mean, there's this road that we're all on, and there are two traps on either side of the road. One side is the ditch of cynicism. Right? There's no hope. I'm going to give up. This is useless and pointless. No one's ever going to, have a better future. The other side is sentimentalism, which tends to sugarcoat everything and see everything through rose-colored glasses. So trying to sort of navigate in between those two ditches and sort of try to stay in the middle of the road while your heart has 10,000 breaks in it. And you feel all of this. I mean, there's not a night that goes by where I don't feel the weight of sending someone back out into the very thing that I was trying to pull them out of. And at the same time, realizing that sometimes the most loving, humanizing things we do are creating these structures of support, which involve rules and guidelines and policies and procedures, and that sometimes people aren't quite ready for it, and which is not the same as saying someone wants to be homeless. And so it's a hard conversation, and I have more stories of heartbreak than I do stories of success, but I also have tons of stories that will never show up on the front page of a newspaper. And it's all those intertwined, connective stories, which might on the outside seem like such a small success, but on the inside is absolutely huge. And so, I feel honored to do the work. My background is as a social worker too, so that's where my heart lies. And I mean, the challenge from a staffing standpoint is just trying to get everyone moving in the same direction, and that sometimes can be challenging. And I'll finish with this. And this is a conversation I think that's picking up speed here in the Tri-Valley, thanks in part to a speaker that we all had the benefit of listening to a month. Has it been about a month now? Dan Pelot is his name. Who really is trying to sort of change the narrative around nonprofits and how we raise money and how we're supported. This notion, this messaging that took hold, which is, 97 cents of every dollar has to go towards programming. 3 cents of every dollar can go towards overhead, and that's it. And that has to be the ratio and the percentage if you want to get a AAA rating or a 4-star rating or a platinum seal of approval from Candid or GuideStar or Charity Navigator, which I think actually work against nonprofits, to be honest. And yet we all sort of feel beholden to them because we feel like we have to show those stars on our websites. But it sets us up in a situation that's it's not tenable. I don't know. I mean, there are a little over 100,000 nonprofits in the state of California. 2/3 of those are volunteer-led. The only nonprofit organizations out there that I know of that can claim 97 cents of every dollar is going towards programs and only 3 cents are going towards overhead are those volunteer-led organizations. God love them, they're great, but they're never going to have the kind of impact. They're never going to push the kinds of doors open. They're never going to cross the threshold that people need in the way of impact to make a difference. And so to do that, you've got to staff. You have to grow. You have to expand. Whether that's capital projects or that's adding headcount, whatever it is, there is no standing still in this nonprofit business. You're either growing or you're dying, and you're becoming irrelevant. And so, a story that Dan raised when he spoke was, would you rather an organization spend 3% on overhead, and that's all they were allowed to do because they were going to get skewered by the media if they spent any more? And yet, with that 3%, they made no impact, they made no headway whatsoever, versus an organization that spends 25% on overhead, really does pay and support their staff, and they just eradicated 75% of something, right? But we're so stuck in this, we can't spend money on anything to get the message out about what we do. Whereas McDonald's can spend $1.4 billion a year on trying to get people to eat more Happy Meals. But if we spend $3,000 on a mailing that does not hit our target of how much money we needed to make from that mailing or that social media post or that campaign or that fundraiser, it's frustrating because at some point in time, we know what we do works. The only thing that stands in the way of that is the money to do more of it. And to hire superstars, and to retain them, right? So, yeah. No opinion on this. Yeah.
So
Hey,
he's.
Gloria.
Oh, real quick before you ask it, it's Dan Pelota and it's Uncharitable, and you can watch it. You can find it on Netflix and other places. Yeah, it's out there now. So please spread that around because it's huge. Sorry, Gloria, go ahead. We have a mic coming for you.
Oh, okay. No problem. Just a couple of things. I was thinking about nonprofits and how they started, and a lot of them started out of churches, like Red Cross. And I mean, that was all volunteer and it was all hard. It's kind of interesting to look back at that. Right. But my main point is that I over and over and over, Kelly, have thought, why don't we get more corporate participation in funding care for our communities? And that's a big part of what Three Valleys' mission is, I believe.
Right? Kelly, tell our net worth of this area. Yeah. So part of the philosophy is, first of all, we don't compete with nonprofits, and we don't have one cause. We don't, as almost everyone here focuses on one primary cause. Our cause is whatever cause surfaces in the community, and we're here to help. So what we try to do is tap into the untapped resources, and the research showed when we began was that the GDP was $48.5 billion in this area, the Three Valleys area, and that less than 0.5% was going back into the research. So it's not that it's not here, it's where is it going? And so Three Valleys, a lot of people have, Fidelity, and they have Schwab, and people who have money, and we have our investment people here. When they have money, they put them into donor advised funds, they put them into different things, and then that money is invested, and it can do good, but it can also sit there. It could also go to other great causes elsewhere, and also our population often sees causes in other countries, and we're not saying those aren't great or your alma mater in another state, but the problem that we have in the Three Valleys area is that people are unaware, they are in denial that there are actual needs here because they're masked, they manifest differently, and it's not as apparent. But also we're kind of caught in the middle because in areas, other parts of the counties, there are very legitimate needs, but they also then have access to a lot of federal funding and a lot of state funding and a lot of other things. So we don't begrudge them that, but we also want to, give the message that we have very real needs. And so what we do is we share data, and we share if it's data you need, we have that. If it's policies, we have that. If it's the story or the heartstring, we have that. And what we do is we go to corporations and other people and high wealth individuals who have net worth individuals who maybe just don't realize, and they also don't trust. We talked about trust, and they're not sure where their money will go. They don't want to go to GoFundMe. They've heard the stories that, Dan had referred to that are often exaggerated. And so what we tried to do is matchmake people with the cause. So I have been so surprised by the people I've met. I've been in a bubble. I mean, I wasn't raised with anything. My mom had 8th grade education, whatever. So when I meet with people and they'll say, I'm just going to write a little check. And then I'm looking at all the zeros and I'm like, that's a little check. Like that's a big check to me, but it's relative, right? And they're not bragging. They are there's a book I've just read. It's called The Millionaire Next Door. People you would not expect. They might just not have heirs. They might have invested. They might have just had a windfall, whatever, and they want to do something good. So our job is to direct it. And we are just, we're fairly new ourselves. We're a startup, but the process is beginning. And we also worked with the corporations and we challenged them to be collaborative, the same thing that all of you are saying. And we said, so I had a bank, Fremont Bank, and they said, oh, we're giving. And I said, what about Heritage Bank? Well, you already have a bank. Well, all banks can give. Then we got John Muir, and then we have Stanford, and now we're working with Summit and Kaiser. If everybody joins, then we will bring in more. So I do appreciate, I didn't want to overcompensate, but it's my chance to kind of talk a little bit about what we do because not everyone understands. A community foundation is about the community and it's local resources back to local needs. Give where you live.
Kim, can I say something really quick in response to that too? I've been that person for the longest time that has said that oftentimes in the Tri-Valley that poverty is hidden or that homelessness is invisible. There's a great book, Poverty by America. Matthew Desmond, get it tonight if you haven't read it. He challenges me on that. I think challenges all of us on this. He says, who sees the poor? The market. Because the market forces poor people to pay for their poverty over and over, who have to pay much more than the rest of us who are housed and have jobs and have cars that run and all those things. The market never lost sight of the poor. And people make money off of them every single day in America. The other thing that's a challenge for me, and talking specifically to donors, is none of us quite ever know what the sweet spot is for a donor. Donors give on their own timetable. They give for all sorts of reasons. And I think that it's never clear to me like what the sweet spot is of not having enough money. So people worry that I'm not going to give to you because I'm worried about your long-term sustainability and viability. So if you don't have X number of dollars in your reserves and your, to create margin, then I'm not going to give to you. Or you have too much money because you took that advice and said, hey, we don't have enough money for you to give to us because you don't think we're going to be financially viable and sustainable for long periods of time. And I understand why would you want to give to us if we're going to be gone in 2 years. So I wish we could just agree on what's not enough and what's too much. Like Kaiser and Stanford, we have to write sustainability narratives for them all the time. We need to keep a reserve of $1 million. They want to know that if I invest $500,000 in this new program that you're touting, it's going to be here for a long time to come. But I feel like sometimes we get penalized for being financially stable. But the only reason we did that is because you told us you weren't going to give to us if we didn't become financially stable. And now that we're financially stable, you think we have too much money. And so, I think as a donor, it's just figuring out what it is that you're trying to do in your giving. I do think track record. I do think reputation. I think all those things make a big difference. And I think it's figuring out if your heartstrings are pulled. For smaller, upstart nonprofits, they need a ton of support too. We're constantly having conversations with the cities on a more equitable way of cities, granting money to different organizations based on size, based on annual budget, based on how long they've been around in the Tri-Valley, because it's not fair to put, long-standing track record nonprofits against the upstart nonprofit and have them compete for the same dollars. But that's exactly what we do. We go and we show up at the city meetings because we have to, because if we don't, we'll pay a price. And yet we spend a ton of time, a ton of staff hours, sometimes even more than we might even get from the city and the grant itself. Because to not do that and to not show up in those spaces, we're penalized for that. So we're kind of stuck in this I don't know if it's really worth our time, but the last thing we want to hear is someone said, hey, Open Heart Kitchen didn't show up for this thing. They must not need any money. I'm like, well, no, it cost me $10,000 in staff time to report on this grant for $5,000. And I had to go into debt to take this grant, right? So, I think that's one of the challenges for all of us.
I just want to add, we don't usually get a lot of grants. We don't get federal or local funding through the government. We can always, but I'll just say what we find is we want to support your new and exciting program. It's going to be seed money. So you're going to give you 3 years worth of money. And then you're like, okay, so you try to fundraise around it, but you didn't meet them. So you go back and they're like, well, wait a minute. We told you this was seed money. You don't get any more money. So it's like, okay, that program has to go away. And so for me, it's just much easier to try to find a donor that wants to give us the funds. So we just had a donor. They gave us $20,000 so that we could start this vet program. And so on August 9th, we're going to be coming to Goodness Village and doing vet care for the neighbors. Yay! And then after that, we're going to stop by John's place and we're going to help all the residents that live there and then anybody that has appointments. But I'll tell you, it was way easier to ask a donor to give us money than to try to go through a grant process. And so I feel for everybody here because they're providing really important services that are somewhat expected of them, but then yet told they shouldn't be asking for money to support those services. If you're a good nonprofit, why aren't you getting money from the public? You should be fundraising for this. So yeah, I think also gratitude is a challenge. We live in gratitude. That's what we live in every single day. We're so grateful for everything, but it's exhausting because somebody is upset with you because you called and they don't want you to call them. They want a letter from you, and somebody else is upset because you didn't call them. And so kind of the same thing that John's saying is it's so stressful. You go into a donor meeting and you're like, I don't know who you really are and what you care about. And then you find out that that person is now very upset with you because you're going to help people and they hate people. Animals are in this situation because people suck. And so now that you've been cut off because you have programs that help people. And so it's like you just never, it's so nerve-wracking, especially if you're a perfectionist. I know, it's so true. You have to, I sometimes say if someone came to us and they offered us $5 million to open up a wildlife sanctuary, what would we do? Well, we probably would not open up a wildlife sanctuary. It's not our mission. It's not what we do. And isn't there somebody that's better equipped to do it? And so some people might think you're crazy for turning away money. Now, let's be honest. If they gave me $5 million, I love raccoons. I would love to feed a raccoon. If you've ever seen Little Baby, oh, it's so cute. But yeah, no, it's really difficult to live in a place of gratitude all the time. It can be a little challenging. So it's a stressor.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Three Valleys because Kelly called me up, I don't know, about a year ago and said, consider, applying for this grant. And it was for our team, it was for our staff. And Christine and John spoke about it that, that this work is hard. This work is really hard. And people do get secondary trauma from the work. And they're great at it and they want to do it. But we want to keep them doing it because they're amazing. The staff is amazing. So we're able to write this grant to Three Valleys, and we now bring in somebody who does therapeutic art for our staff. And we're able to have retreats for the different departments just to go have fun and bond and team build. And it has really, now the three of us, because of this, are going to take the next step and do that together. So I really appreciate that from Three Valleys and really starting that. All right. Thank you.
I love that. I always think, I've been in this field for 20 years and I've heard the toughest of toughest stories and really been honored to be the person that holds those stories. And I've often wondered, am I dead inside? Because maybe respond with tears and things like that. And as you're talking, what's coming to mind is I think over the years, I have learned how to work with a broken heart. That's just my standard. I'm going to continue to love hard because my heart has hurt so much that these people deserve us to love them this hard. But it is a big ask of my staff to do the same thing, or my husband to deal with this woman who doesn't always have emotion. But I think that that's important. There was her hand. There we go. Hi.
Thank you. Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Please introduce yourself and maybe say a few things.
Sure. Well, I have a question too. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Jean Josie. I'm on the Dublin City Council. I feel like a little incognito. And so for anybody that's on the stage that didn't realize I was back here, sorry for invading your therapy session. Really sorry about that. My question for you, first of all, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you do, all of you, for our residents, for Dublin, of course, but the whole Tri-Valley. Obviously, the local governments can't do everything. You all do it so much better than we could, even if we tried to take it on ourselves. We rely on you, as you know, more than you know. My question, I'm shocked that everybody didn't immediately say their biggest challenge was funding, because I know that is a huge challenge. And the way we go about funding it is problematic, for sure. The last thing we want to do as local governments is make your lives harder. We obviously have accountability issues that we have to, to the taxpayers, but also to the county that funds some of our money that we pass through to you, to the federal government that funds some of the money that we pass through to you. But we are looking internally to how can we make that process better, easier for you guys. So 2 questions. One is, since you're all here together, how can we make this easier for you guys? So that's the first question. We are looking at trying to do a single Tri-Valley Human Services Needs Grant application so that you don't have to fill out Pleasanton's, Livermore's, Dublin's. So that would be, yes, exactly. Like the Common App, for those of you who have kids headed for college, we're looking at trying to make a Common App like that so that, there would still have to be how many Dublin residents, how many Pleasanton residents, there still would be those questions, but at least it would all be in the same order. The things that are duplicate, you would only have to answer once. What's your mission? How big are you? What's your, upload your budget one time, those kinds of things. So that's, I see from the applause that that's a good thing. Okay, good. Yep. And then the other thing I want to ask about is if there's any other ways that would be, that we can make life easier, please shoot me an email because I'm hammering on the staff about this. We do ask our human services commissions to rate things. If you have feedback on that process within Dublin, I want to hear about it. And then the other thing I wanted to know is we just did a Tri-Valley Human Services Needs Assessment, which is why you're not getting as much money as maybe you think you deserve. Because what it said was, dental care and things like that. If you have any feedback on that process, if you're aware of what that report said, I was a little disappointed in the report personally. I don't think it really gave us much in the way of direction. It was very high level, which we already knew. What we were trying to get out of that consulting project was very detailed specifics. And so if you have any feedback on that, I'd love to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. All right. Do we want to fill our buckets or do we have still some more challenges? No? Okay. Oh, another question. Go ahead, Kelly.
Because I called another community foundation when we were working with the one family that we're working with. I'm sorry, we called another community foundation and I was asking what they do because many of us are helping this one particular family in Livermore right now who had the parents died in an accident and the younger sibling, and it's just really tragic. But they just told me call 211. So I wanted to ask you, that's not the advice I give. I usually say one of you, but I was just wondering, are any of you affiliated with 211, and what happens when you call 211?
They send them to us.
So we do, you sometimes use 211. It's called coordinated entry as well. So when we started with utilizing coordinated entry for families to get into our shelter, they would say, call coordinated entry, and then they will place the family in a shelter in the Bay Area. So maybe you're from Livermore and they're going to place you in Richmond. Or you're from Richmond and they're going to place you in Livermore. And you really don't want to be in Livermore because you're from Richmond. So what we do now, I'm going to share the secret with all of you, is I know, it's okay, it's okay. We actually do have people, we still utilize the system, but we also do allow them to call our shelter directly. And then that way we can help coordinate an entry. So then we can say, hey, we just talked to this family. They're in Pleasanton. They need to come in the shelter. Could you please coordinate entry, do an intake, and let them come in? So that way we've sort of gotten around that. I think 211 can be really helpful if somebody is needing services, maybe in a different part of Alameda County. They do have actual live people there, I think from 8 to 4. And I think that's more helpful. Sometimes around Christmas time, we have a holiday program that's not Christmas, it's all holidays, our holiday program that serves about 5,000 people. But sometimes people won't know about it and they'll call 211 and they'll get to hear about it. And it is for people from the Tri-Valley. So I know for some things like that, 211 can be helpful.
I know when I was running a nonprofit in Fremont, we used it more when I was there for up to the minute beds that were available for shelters all over. I don't know if you guys, we don't really use it here, but they send us a lot of people for hotel vouchers. So somehow they got a memo that we have hotel vouchers and housing, and we just have all these houses available, and so yeah.
They use a system called iCarol, and it's a lowercase I, capital CAROL. So there's a way to go into iCarol if you put your agency's
details. Maybe we need to update it.
And look up iCarol. There's a way to then check whether everything reflected in their description of your program is really what you offer. So because they use that database when they're referring clients out into the community. So there's something there that doesn't reflect what you're actually offering, you might be getting those calls.
Okay, thank you. That's great. We'll check on that tomorrow.
So I've been trying to use 211 for about 14 years, and talking to people homeless and saying, well, how did it work for you? It doesn't usually work. It really doesn't. They get a number, they get someplace else to call, they don't get an answer, they get put on hold. But I did look on their website, and I'm telling you, if you want to discover a gold mine of resources that you want to print out yourself, safe parking programs all over the Bay Area. I mean, it is a beautiful thing. And that's the biggest value to 211 that I know of, is go to their website and look at the resources, and you refer people direct to those resources.
Over here, right? Question. Right here.
He's just waving.
He's
so patient.
So shy down there.
I'm part of this group called CERT, Community Emergency Response Team, and we had somebody from 211, I think Lars Eric Holmes, and he talked about the services. But what I think what's nice about 211 is that it's scalable. I think they don't have like the expertise, but if there's like a big disaster, their system can pull in people from other parts of the country and handle a big volume. So I think it's like this is like community-based services, which is really cool, whereas this is like a national coverage when you have the National Guard coming in. So I think
they have it in Florida too, because I had a group from Florida come last week, and so we were talking about it, and they said we have a 211. So I was like, oh, they have it in Florida. I didn't know that. I thought it was just
so it's a big. So again, it's like the does it work for 2? Does it work for 20? It has to work for 2,000, right? And so the training has to be and the level of service has to be scalable. So I think that's probably where they decided. They made the heartbreaking thing of saying, we can't go that deep, and we can only provide these lists so that they can have their bank of volunteers and workers. So,
Good perspective. Yeah. Thank you.
I just want to say something about 201. You know, it's a service-oriented system, as you talked about, like a general across the board. Is we receive probably about 20% of our bed requests through the system, because what 201 has taught people is that if you can't Google it or if somebody doesn't know, they go to the basic function of dial 211, and that's how they're able to easily find like SHP. Now, of course, you have to go on the website and kind of scroll through about 10 pages to be able to get to a bed request, but the system is in place, and it's very helpful for SHP. Is it time to fill the bucket?
Wait, no, I have a real quick question or request. So anybody that's dealing with, if you have an organization or you have a system, am I looking like very heavenly?
You do, and I was
I feel
like,
it.
no
I
curtains.
feel it. But animal welfare, we're not tracking the data. And so we recently tried to, so I'm the president of the board for the California Animal Welfare Association, and I chair their legislative committee. And so we're really trying at the statewide level to make change. And because our Health and Human Service kind of interventions are not tracking animals, we cannot get them to take it seriously. And so I've asked Alameda County, like the point in time counts. Christine's been really open to this, is just start asking the question, do you have animals? The more data that we then have, the easier it is for us to get the funding to be able to then provide the services. And I don't need even the funding, just being able to pass legislation that's supportive of making sure that animals are part of the equation. Because right now at the state, when you look at Sacramento, they're kind of saying, what are you talking about? This isn't the problem. But when you work at the grassroots level, people are coming up against this all the time, and we have no data to support it. So if you have the ability to start asking those questions, they're really easy questions to ask. Sometimes not. Sometimes you'd be shocked at somebody they're unhoused and they have 12 dogs, which is like, what? How do you have 12 dogs? But it's possible, but it's important to ask, because then we can start to develop a more robust intervention program that provides more meaningful services. Now we can fill the bucket.
Okay, before we fill the bucket, I'm going to ask Terry. Terry, are you in the back? I know you're looking for something to cover that window. Could you move Kelly's signage to maybe right there?
Oh, that's a great idea. No,
it's coming in right at the top.
Is it right at the peak?
Yeah. So unless someone wants to stand on a chair, I think we might be blocking.
Hunter.
Yeah, Hunter, go stand in the window.
Watch. Okay.
Let's see if we can. We're gonna get
It's
creative.
good. I think it's high enough.
Oh, yeah, it's
Perfect.
That is good. You guys all have spots on your faces.
A little bit more. A little bit more. I think you got it.
Perfect.
Woo! All right. That was leadership at its finest. No. Thank you, Terry. I appreciate you. Okay, filling the bucket, just so that we're compliment sandwiches. That's what I like to do. So, what fills your buckets? Who wants to start?
What? Do you hear birds?
Yes.
That's
Sorry.
a phone.
I assumed it was somebody's phone.
I think they follow me everywhere I go. I hear birds. Birds fill my bucket.
I have this visual of you singing and just animals.
Just the hills are alive. That's what I'm gonna do if I don't. Anyhow, fill my bucket. Okay. What fills our bucket? Like keeps us sane, or like
your own interpretation? Now let's go.
Freely. Okay. Well, you have to have levity in this role, and so I try to do things. It's tough. I've been doing this 28 years, and so you got to find balance. And so I feel like when I'm in a mode where it's just really high stress audits and reports and HR issues, I have to get away or just detach somehow. So for example, this last weekend I went to Tahoe, first time since I was 8 years old, and just tried to unplug. And just 2 days felt like, I'm not kidding, like 2 weeks. I was like, oh, was awesome. And then tomorrow I'm going to Santa Cruz for 3 for my birthday. And just little, it's hard for a director to get away for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, but just those little. And then I think if you notice my shirt, Be Well, we added some initiatives in, and we gave half days to some of our staff just to be refreshed. And so I've been trying to do that and just filling my bucket. Well, like, who am I outside of work? Like, who's Christine Beitsch when she takes off, her big girl dress and her mom's high heels? Who am I? And I dig deep, and I'm actually a really creative person. I went to acting school. I want to make a movie someday, like all those things you forget about when you're writing grants. When you're writing grants all day long, it's so fun. And then you get denied. So things with a smile because you love the work you do. But I think filling my bucket is not quite filled, but I'm filling it with pieces that someday hopefully will come into fruition through some visual arts, media, movie, something about advocating for the people we're serving to tell the story. So something's birthing. I don't know quite what yet, but it's filling my bucket just knowing there's still some vision alive in me that's outside of exactly what I'm doing right now. So there you have it.
Fill in the bucket. I love this. I have to say that what fills our bucket is the ability to immediately have impact. We can say yes right away as an organization. And the reason is because we do not own things. We do not have buildings. We're not repairing. We're not pulling in dogs. We don't have any of that. What we have is a lot of volunteers, but we also have a ton of resources that the Lord basically provides us. But then we're able to use that. And then as soon as there's some issues, then I have people to call. And I got to say, 13 years ago, I met a guy named Ron, and Ron was homeless, and he was living in Dublin. And about 3 years ago, he was one of the first ones to come into the Goodness Village. And one of the things was it changed his life upside down. And so we got to be a part of the service. He died and passed away, but it was so honoring. And then I have to say that our first mom, the call came in 6 years ago, and it was a mom in a parking lot in Walmart. She had 4 kids, nothing, no money, no nothing. And so we got her into what started as our program. We have something called 125 or 225. Depends on the size of the family. We could put people immediately in their homes if they know somebody. But the key was she wanted a home. 2 days later, she got a call from Tri-Valley Haven. And that started this process of 100 days. And there are so many resources wrapped around her, and we still walk with her. What fills my bucket, Daniel already bragged about his bed. He is the bed man, and he's so much fun and hilarious. And then I have to say that, Margaret Ann and Christine. Now, Christine I know and love, but really it's Margaret Ann I love a lot more because she answers the phone at 10:30 p.m. and or calls me. And so And then finally, I just want to say what fills my bucket is John. John, I walked in day one. I'd never been inside, seen them producing, but they had this thing so wrapped up and so well done. And I think that was a lot because of your leadership. And on day one he opened, he was ready to go and rock the house.
Woo!
So I want to talk about 2 things. One, SHP runs about 9%, 30,000 volunteers, and 9% is what goes to staffing. And they're able to produce what they do. They have teamed up with companies like Lowe's. Lowe's gives $1.5 million a year to SHP and their cause. But, we as humans, we're taught to hold on to the money we earn because somebody out there bigger than us, we'll just call him Uncle Sam. It's not his real name. But they take that money from us, so we hold on to what little we have. So it's hard to be in a given heart all the time. And being a faith follower, and we lived on this property, and we gave our heart, and then when the money went in my hand, the money went in my pocket. So it's hard to give back. I'm like, so we're taught to, I'll give my time. I will give you a resource. I'll give you a referral. But the money is what makes this run, right? And I've learned I just don't go to the same functions as my wife does. So it took many, many arguments on her half to say, do you want to pay the mortgage or do you want to build a bed? So I say, let's pay the mortgage. So I just don't go to the same function she does, because you know how many people will give to a child before they give to an adult? A lot. Do you know how many people will give to an animal before they give to a child? A lot more. So none of us can be together in the same space.
We have a running joke about building tiny houses with tiny beds for
tiny animals.
For dogs, and that we will be rich.
This is a myth. A tiny dog village. It's a myth. I'm telling you.
Like homeless dog, get a homeless bed. Good to go. But I want to talk about, like what Roland said is the actual impact, right? So as a volunteer and giving up a lot of my time, which is almost every single Saturday, I'll drive by Goodness Village on my way to SHP, and I'm preparing for the next bed build. I'm preparing for a grant that we write, or I'm preparing to meet somebody. And that the impact is that we'll do all this work in preparation for it. And then when you drive up to the house, I'll tell one story, which is how it fills my bucket, is that we don't know the backstory. So we know that pair of grandparents, mom was going, or grandma was going to surgery, grandpa was there. I could hear his deep voice yelling at the kids, right? No. It's a filling story, but it was a sad moment there. But there's 5 kids, and we were delivering 5 beds to a home in Oakland, and it was quite apparent that the parents were not in the picture, right? And so he's yelling at the kids, get this stuff out of the room, get ready for the beds. And I mean, like, we're seeing old mattresses and used toys, and 3 kids in one room, 2 with an aunt and uncle in another room. It's just overwhelming with the emotion of knowing that this is how they've been for a while, right? And so we go in, we build the 5 beds. Grandma and grandpa never came out of the room. We were working with the kids. There was, the 14-year-old boy, and then 2 of the kids went there, and then there was a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and we built these beds. And as we walk out the door, we hear grandpa come back, and he's ripping a new one. He's telling the 14-year-old, that's not where I wanted the beds. I wanted them there. And we could just hear this behind us. And our first thought as people of privilege, living in a life where we're not exposed to this every day, that they're like, we should report him to CPS, or why are you treating your kids like that? We forget about the moment of like somebody's grandparents are now raising 5 kids again. Right? And we don't know the situation, what's going on. Grandma's going through a surgery for whatever reason. And now grandpa, who's probably been retired, now has to figure out how to raise 5 kids. Right? And so we turn right back around. We go in, we take the beds that we just put together, take them apart, put them in the right room, and then we build them. So as I'm getting ready to leave, 14-year-old goes off. He's playing a video game in the back room. He's done with this. He knows grandpa's yelling at him. He's doing whatever he can to deal with the situation. But one of the beds is built, and the 6-year-old, you just hear, she's just jumping up and down on this bed. She heard grandpa yelling. She knows how this environment of what she's living is going through. She's looking at her little sister. She's like, guess what? Guess what? Guess what? And we're walking out the door, and I'm pissed off at grandpa, but he's like 6'4" and 220 pounds. I wasn't going to say nothing. But as I walk out mad and agitated about the system that we're living in and the reasoning that's here, that she looks at her little sister. I can't remember what she called her, but she was calling her by her name. I'm like, Meredith, guess what? Guess what? Guess what? And you could just hear this little squeak of what? And she goes, we get to have our own beds to sleep in tonight. And then I cried all the way to my truck. The buddy was with me real tough. He goes, Daniel, I'm like, go away for a minute. And that the impact is what the story is that, being a faith follower, we say things like, why would you give $20 to that homeless person? They're going to just go spend it on alcohol or drugs or whatever it may be. Is that if your heart is led to do something, it's not my responsibility or my judgment to figure out what they do after that. And if we could all have that faith in that moment, and as you guys on the stage with me, when we talk about what fills your bucket, is that, you get to worry about, I have to send you back out to the street, or you have to worry about, we have no more money to pay for your rent. Mm-hmm. That little moment that you're able to do something is what fills your buckets. Right. And if anybody wants to go on a bed delivery with me and cry with me, then I'll take you along.
I have lots of guest and participant and client stories, but my mind goes to my kids. I have a 21-year-old daughter, an 18-year-old daughter, and a 14-year-old son. And my wife, Shonda, for those of you who don't know her, is the operations director at Open Heart Kitchen, and she's been with the organization for 11 or 12 years now. And so if I'm working 18 hours a day, she's working 19 or 20. So, but she and I have sacrificed our family and our kids for 25 plus years to help people. And so when we opened Vineyard in January, my 21-year-old daughter, Zoe, wrote a letter to both Shonda and I that's on our refrigerator now and just said, "I love that you were my parents." Oh. And I get it. I finally get it. And I'm so proud of you. So I took a picture of that and I can't find it because my wife and I share the same app lady and she takes nonstop pictures. So I cannot even scroll that far to find it. So I know where it was at some point in time, but it's now washed over with, I don't know. So that letter fills my bucket. I see it every time. It's on the fridge. And if I could ever find it on my phone again, that fills my bucket. I got to take another picture to bring it to the top. The other thing that fills my bucket is I love agitating people who are assholes. Because I used to think that objectivity was attainable. I don't want to be objective. I'm subjective, and I am fiercely protective of the people that I work with and alongside of on this journey. And I will rip your head off, right? If you need it. Yep. And then we'll go out for coffee and we'll put you together again. But it's just like, no, it's like we need people in the trenches who have that tenacity and that willingness to roll up their sleeves and just get in it. And at times that involves being the heat shield on the spaceship, coming back in, just the heat that's coming off of that, of like, I'll be that for you. You know, you get better, you get back on your feet. I'll deal with the assholes while you do that, right? I'll keep them at bay, and then we'll keep doing this really, really important work. So that fires me up every day to agitate those and irritate those people. Because it's a value judgment. I mean, I am picking winners and losers in this, and so that fills my bucket every day, right?
I like you, John.
Didn't see that coming. Okay.
There's another.
So we can talk freely.
Oh, just so you're like stand-up comic. You're amazing. So you filled my bucket right now.
All right, I just want to squash this rumor that that animal welfare gets more money than Health and Human Services, because it is not true. Google it. Number one, we barely get any government money at all, none. And corporations don't align to animal welfare as a value for their philanthropic giving. And so we very rarely get any corporate giving. So we rely heavily on individual gifts, most of which are not really big. So he brought it up. Now I have to clear it up. We have to work hard for every dollar we get. We all do. Okay, so my bucket, I love making a difference. Like, I am fueled by it. Like, it's core. And it took me a while. I opened Murphy's Paw in downtown Pleasanton, the store. So I went from highway safety, keeping babies alive mostly, and once I had a baby, I couldn't deal with the content. So there are people on this stage that deal with things that it would break me to pieces. I couldn't do it. And so dealing with children dying in car crashes, it was too much for me. So I decided to open a retail store. I love my dog. I hated it. And I spent so much time then giving back to the community and joining the city on projects and the downtown association, and just realized that like what I need to really feel fulfilled in my life is making sure that I'm helping other people and making a difference. And so I just want to share a really quick story. I'm probably going to cry when I tell it, but he's making me tell it because of his story. But this man shows up at Valley Humane one afternoon. It's kind of late. We've already closed, and he's banging on the front door. And one of our managers opens the door, and he has a Chihuahua that had just been hit by a car. And he is not a nice man. Like, he is being mean. He is yelling at my staff. He's like, I have to go home and take my medication. You need to take this animal. And she's saying, we don't have vet services on this site. You need to take the animal to a veterinarian or to East County Animal Services so that this dog can be seen. And he is not accepting that answer. It doesn't matter what she says and how adamant she is. He is getting meaner and meaner and meaner, and yelling at her. And so she finally is pretty much like, this guy's an asshole. I mean, to be honest, that's what she's thinking. And so she goes, okay, fine. We will take the dog. And like within that moment, everything about him changed because it was his dog. And so he was so desperate to get the services that he needed to try to keep this dog alive that in that moment he gave up everything. He gave up his companion, anything he needed so that he could try to make sure that animal lived. And so we do deal with people sometimes that are kind of not nice, and that are yelling at us for all different reasons. But sometimes we just have to believe in the human being and understand kind of where that is coming from. And so that's why we believe in people at work. Because most people are really good. Most people are trying to do the best that they can. And so we need to meet people where they're at and just do the best thing that we can to help them and their animals, even though no one donates to support animals.
All right. You heard the story. Will you give the kids or the animals?
Right now.
For the animals.
Wow.
Put on the spot.
He didn't cry, so he's screwed.
I always
said
cry
he
when I tell
cried.
a story. I always cry when I tell a story. I held it in for composure.
Well, you should let it out.
I didn't know you were going to out-cry me.
Comedy panel.
Right? I told you it was going to get rough. Would you like, go ahead. No, please go.
I appreciate you all hanging in there with us. I'm going to be really quick. What fills my bucket is, when survivors have the courage to come to Tri-Valley Haven, and when we're able to, as a team, stop that cycle of abuse. One of the first women who came to Tri-Valley Haven when I was there, I've been there about 23 years. Actually, our domestic violence shelter was full, and we brought her into our homeless shelter. And so when we had just started running the homeless shelter, and she had been shot in the head by her husband in front of her 4-year-old. And she had a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I see her today. She when she was at the shelter, she was monolingual, Spanish speaking, did not speak any English. Today she runs one of the retail stores in the area. She's a manager. And that 9-year-old is now a social worker. That 4-year-old has become a police officer because he says he wants to stop assholes like his father. So that's what fills my bucket.
I don't know how to even. I don't even want to say compete because that's not what we're here for. But forget. I'm like, these stories are so good, and really, I'm going to say that what fills my bucket is you all and the work that you do, and that I get to sit on this stage with you and be a part of these stories with the people that we serve. And then on the other flip side, bringing up kids, what fills my bucket is my 21-year-old. She's my baby, and she and I are like twin souls, and she works at a Planet Fitness down in Southern California. And if you work with our unhoused population, they often get the $10 gym membership so that they can have a place to shower. And so she is the front desk, and she helps people come in and they take their shower, and she takes care of whatever cleanup process that's needed, and has conversations with them every day. And so if it's a tough conversation, she will call me, and her first question is, I have this story that I want to run by you, and I want to make sure that I treated this person with respect and dignity. Can I run this conversation by you? And she's had some amazing interactions with people, but just the fact that she's thinking, was this a respectful and dignified conversation, I think stems out of the work that we do over at Goodness Village and the way that I've modeled treating individuals over time. And that definitely, she will always, the next generation will always be where I think that we need to look for to make sure that we are living right, and changing the world as we hope to change it. So, thank you all for